Okay, so Mike, thanks for coming to the Camino Cafe today. It's a thrill to be able to sit here and talk with you, and so nice that we're both on local time in Spain. So thanks for coming.
It's my pleasure, Liam. It's a pleasure to be here and share some lovely stories with you.
Oh, wonderful. Well, I am really excited to hear about your own personal journey and how you got to the Camino. And of course, you've written a book called Miracles on the Camino. And, I'm a lover of the miracles that occur. I feel like I've seen some of my own. And of course, all these years that I've been interviewing folks, everybody seems to yeah, there's some special power going on there. So we'll get to all of that. But let's start, just to put everything in context. Give us a little bit of information about your background. You're a journalist, and kind of tell us a little bit about your life before you moved to Spain.
Okay, well, I was born in the north of England, working class guy. I was a printer, then I became a journalist in a northern city, covering football mainly. We moved to Spain 7 or 8 years ago. We absolutely love everything in Spain, the people, everything about it. Very, very, the most unique place in the world, which obviously helps you to enjoy the Camino. And then I retired a few years ago. And then a good piece of good fortune, one of my best friends had walked the Camino, and he told me about it. And then that was it. 6 months there. After that, I was there.
Had you always planned to move to Spain? Was that always going to be your retirement place?
Not really, Lee. No, my wife hasn't got very good health, and she's better in the climate here. Okay. And we've always loved Spain. We've had holidays here. We've got friends here. So yeah. No, not really. No, it wasn't really a long-term plan, but we're very happy here.
Oh, good. Well, I'm sorry your wife is having some health struggles. It's good to hear that it's better managed here in Spain, because you live more in the drier climate, I'm thinking.
Yeah, well, the weather, we're an hour north of Madrid.
Okay. And
we used to live in Murcia, but we moved a year ago to be near our son. Our son lives near Madrid with our granddaughter, half Spanish, half English. So we're very full of life with her.
That's so nice. You're in a town called Zaragoza. Is that right?
No, it's near Segovia. Okay. It's an hour north of Madrid. Yeah, it's very beautiful.
Okay,
very, very beautiful.
In that area. Is it hilly, flat? What's it like?
No, fairly flat. It's got a 2,000-year-old aqueduct in the middle of the city, a castle that was the inspiration for Walt Disney. It's just spectacular, absolutely spectacular.
Yeah, I was looking at the pictures of the cathedral, so I encourage everyone to look up on Google the photos of the cathedral. It looks like
beautiful place.
Yeah. Okay, so you end up you're working as a journalist. I should probably ask who's your favorite football team if you're a football.
Liverpool.
Liverpool, all right.
Yeah,
I love
Liverpool
too.
Yeah.
Okay, so you end up coming to Spain, and I think you said earlier to me before we started the recording that 6 months into it or so, a buddy of yours tells you about the Camino, and you were not aware at all about the Camino until this conversation. Wow.
Yeah, I'd heard of it, but I didn't know much more about it. And so one of my best friends in Spain, who's a very colourful character, a retired fire officer, he walked the Camino a few years ago, and a very important time of his life. He'd sort of retired, took early retirement. He wasn't sure what he wanted to do with the rest of his life. And he decided to do the Camino, and he would talk about it often, like we all do, bore everybody that's not been on it by all the things that happened to you. Right. And so he just told me these stories, and it just got inside me. And with it, I think my wife very graciously let me do it on my own. But as you know, you don't do it on your own, of course. And right. I did a bit of training, and 3 months later, I was in France, very nervous and frightened.
Wow. So just about 3 months after he tells you about this, you decide to walk.
I wish you could have gone earlier.
No kidding.
The next day would have been good.
Yeah. So what was it about his stories or what he shared with you that you think really moved you, that you're like, I got to go do this?
Well, one thing he kept saying to me, which I then carried on, was, you won't believe much of this and you won't understand it. Everyone who's done it will know about it. It's like a family feel. And when you talk to people out the Camino that haven't done it, they can't really comprehend how much you fall in love with it and how it can change you. But once you've done it yourself, you will appreciate it. So he told me stories about, he met a group of young Christian Americans. I think there were 7 or 8 of them. He met them quite early on, and he used to laugh. I think he used to say they were his puppies. He looked, because he was in his 50s and they were in their 20s. So they wouldn't think they had much in common, but they spent, I don't know, 30 days together, and they've been to visit him, and they're still in contact, as many of us are, of course, with our Camino family. So that was kind of the inspiration, really.
Right. So you were inspired by the connections that he had made.
Yeah, he's the one. Yeah, and then I like, oh, I wonder what this is, and then I looked it up on, and then I watched some YouTube videos, and I just thought, oh, that looks pretty cool. Thought, how am I going to walk 800 kilometers? I was 66 when I did it. I had my birthday at the end, and but you get inspiration from somewhere. It's not 800 kilometers, is it? It's 15, 16 kilometers a day, one step at a time.
Well said. Yes, right. You kind of forget all those kilometers you're going to do in totality.
Oh yeah, yeah. But you're not alone. Things happen to you. You change up here, and in your heart, you change. You're a different person.
How so? How are you different today?
Oh dear, I mean, that's a tough question, Lee. I think, well, if I can just try kind of dance around that slightly, I think it was just, it's like the Camino filters out people. I felt that there are a much higher percentage of people who are kind and thoughtful and caring and loving on the Camino than the normal population. And I'm sure that's true. I mean, who's going to walk 800 kilometers, get blisters, sleep in albergues with 50 people snoring, not eat the best food in the world, walk over rivers and mountains for nearly well over a month? You need to be a special person with sort of, I mean, I don't want to get political. Can you imagine Donald Trump doing it? Of course he wouldn't. So I think the Camino no, but I mean, I think he actually should do it, of course, because if he actually somehow could do it, I think the world would be a better place. But I think no, I think the Camino I am a Christian. I'm a spiritual person. I'm not practicing. I don't go to church. I've got religious beliefs. I was christened. I was confirmed, and I think it reminds you. Let me put it another way. Love is the greatest power in the world, and hate is the worst power. And it proved to me that love will always overcome hate. So positivity is always going to trump negativity. And all the world is messed up, isn't it? But when you do the Camino, you see so much of empathy and help, and it's almost everyone I meet. Something amazing happened to me every day. It was like incredible how it happened. So many amazing people. If I was going to try and write a list of 20 people that have had influence on me, my 20 favorite people in my life, apart from the family, 7 or 8 of them would be on the Camino in 4 weeks, of the greatest people I've met in my life. And I'm still in touch with them today.
Wow. Yeah, I've often thought if the whole world could walk the Camino, we'd have.
Oh, absolutely.
Right?
100%. 100%. It challenges you. It changes you. Something comes inside you. You become different. I mean, I've just so many stories to tell you. I'm trying to rein them back. Well, I'll tell you what. Let me tell you a story. How about that? Is that okay?
Absolutely.
Right. I haven't got a favorite pilgrim, but I have got a favorite moment. So I'm in Lyon, and I need to just quickly rewind on how the book came about. I didn't want to write a book. It never even crossed my mind. I walked the first day. Yeah, no, never ever crossed my mind for a minute. It was the last thing in the world I wanted to do. Because I thought I'd be tired. Didn't even cross my mind. So perhaps it might interest your viewers and listeners that I walked the first day, absolutely incredible. I sent my wife a message on Facebook, on Messenger, what happened to me. It was probably 10 paragraphs. And she said to me, oh, that's really interesting, that, Mike. I'm going to post it on your Facebook page. And it ended up, someone then shared it with someone else, and it ended up on a Facebook page called Camino de Santiago. And I think there's 40,000 people on there. And so the next day I got up and I've got like 50 messages from people, and it just developed like that. So within a few days, there were literally thousands of people following me. And so I would, when I got to my albergue and I'd showered and done all the things we need to do, I just got hold of this little phone here. I don't know how the hell I did it, and just wrote what happened to me. I made no notes or anything. And so the reason I need to tell you that is I'm in Lyon, and I'm laughing about this, but I've become a little bit well known on the Camino because people walking alongside me and around that area had seen it and seen pictures of me. So I'm in the square in Lyon. This lady comes up to me. Mike, are you the guy that, is your name Mike? Do you write those posts? I said, well, it could be me. And she said, well, I want you to tell my story. Well, I said, yes, of course. So we sat down. Well, this is her story. She was a middle-aged lady, very successful, deeply unhappy. She'd had a blackness inside all her life. She could never get rid of it, this very, very severe mental health difficulty, even though she was very successful. She was a Christian. So she said, I decided to come to the Camino because I just felt that God would find me. I need his help. I can't go on like this. So she'd walked all the way from France to Lyon. She'd made some friends. She'd had a reasonable time, but God had not come to help her. I get upset with this story. I'll try my best not to get upset. So she said, anyway, I've finished 3 days ago. I arrived in Lyon. I'm finished. God hasn't come to help me. And I'm going to go back home. It just wasn't what I wanted it to be. She said, so I decided 3 days ago to get a tattoo. So she said, if you look at my arm here, and she showed me another arm and it had all these lines on it. She said, people like me do that to themselves. So I got this tattoo to remind myself of the Camino and also to cover up some scars that I've done to myself over the years. And she said that when I was 9 years old, I went into the garage and drank a bottle of fertilizer to try and kill myself. I mean, heck, can you imagine the responsibility I've got here? I mean, I've asked her permission to share this with you. So please don't worry about that. She's very happy for me to do it. It's nothing she wants to keep private. Anyway, so she said, I've had this darkness inside me all the time. And she said, I got this tattoo. Actually, I can show it here. I don't know if you can see the tattoo there.
Yes.
Right. And she said, I'm talking to the tattooist. He doesn't speak English. I don't speak Spanish, but we got this togetherness and we managed to get through it. And she said, as soon as the tattoo needle came out of my arm, there was like a big flash and God came inside me. He's just inside me. I know he was. And then whoosh, he's gone. And so is all my blackness, my hatred, my self-loathing, the despair I've felt all my life has gone. It's when 3 days ago, I've never been happy in my life. And I want you to share my story because people can learn from this. People believe in God and he can come inside you. He will help you. He can get rid of these black things. I mean, wow, what a story. I mean, and so she's still, and by the way, I'm still in touch with her. She's still really happy. She's got no suicidal thoughts. Now, is that a miracle or not?
Oh,
sounds like a miracle to me. It's a miracle to me. What an amazing woman.
Yeah, and I want to say, would you mind describing the tattoo a little bit? Because for folks,
no, of course not. Let me just see if I can. Yeah, a bit better.
Yeah, so we've got looks like chrysanthemum flowers, I would say. So
yeah,
4 flowers.
She's got 4 children, and I think yeah, I mean, I have got. And then does it say? This is me and her in front of the Cathedral.
Lovely. She's lovely, gorgeous woman. And she's, so I think maybe then a flower for each child. And then does it say
exactly?
Family? It says family. Yes. And then a bee. Yeah. Like there was a bee maybe in the photo.
That's exactly right. That represents her. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And so she just finds you. So first off, there's so many things about the story.
I've got more. That's only one of them.
Yeah, exactly. Your book is
10.
loaded with story after story. They're beautiful. I have not read the whole book, but I've read excerpts, and I'm really enjoying it. I want to go back and talk a little bit. She gave you permission to tell her story, so we're here, and she gave you permission to use her photos. But I wanted to say, so here you are, you're arriving in Leon, you're, you know, several days into your walk, actually a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
you come into Leon and you're a journalist by profession.
Yeah.
Hadn't planned on writing this book. You spend your first day in Saint Jean, you're going over the Pyrenees, you send this to your wife. She says, let me post it. Yeah, now you've become somewhat of a story here just through Facebook. People are following you. And you're having your own moment in the square, right? You arrive at the cathedral in Leon, which is gorgeous. What did it feel like to you, Mike, first of all, to have somebody you've never met to approach you and say, hey, are you Mike? Are you the guy? I have something I want to tell you. What did that feel like to you?
Well, firstly, that happened to me almost every day, but without the story.
Wow.
So people would say, oh, can I have a coffee with you? And I wasn't like super famous. It might happen once a day, sometimes twice. Someone would say, hey, that's that guy. So because there was thousands and thousands of people following me. I was, to be honest with you, it's all a bit of a shock to me, because it was when we sat down together, and it was like the Camino condenses time, doesn't it? You've met someone, I mean, everyone tells the same story. You meet someone for 10 minutes. I mean, there's some things that are not in the book that I can't begin to tell you because they're too private, but they're as strong as that. But people tell you things when you start walking with them for 10 minutes. It condenses time, doesn't it? Like you've been best friends with someone for 25 years. So the feeling I felt was, as she was telling me this story, and we cried. I'm an emotional person. We both cried, but it was tears of happiness. And I just felt this huge responsibility, Lee. So what happened after we hugged each other and we just left. And I said, well, I'll try and write your story and post it tonight. I hope I can tell it accurately how you want it telling. And I made a few notes, a big responsibility, and I just couldn't walk. I walked, as you remember, Leon is every single step on the Camino is beautiful. So I don't get into this, the Meseta is boring. No, it wasn't. Nothing's boring on the Camino. No. Every single minute is a gift, right?
Yes.
But I walked through this industrial estate, and my head was spinning. So I just stopped, and I just got this phone. I don't know how I did it, and just wrote it. And it was like 2,000 words. It took me like half an hour, and there was not a single mistake in it. So I wrote it, and then I carried on walking, but my head was in bits. My experience, it was like, apart from family, it was one of the most greatest experiences of my life. And so I walked 5 or 6 more kilometers, and I just stopped at about 1 o'clock, and I just went to Albergue and stayed there, and I posted it. And then later on that day, she sent me a message saying how much she enjoyed it, and there was hundreds of people saw it, probably thousands. There was like dozens of like tributes to it for her courage, and I'm convinced that someone, if not more than one, will have read it and will have been inspired by it and will have improved their lives through it. Absolutely remarkable woman.
Well, Mike, I'm sitting here feeling very curious, and I want to ask you. So you were a journalist. You, of course, were writing about football most of the time of your career, right? And I'm just wondering, when you were interviewing people in that line of work, did you find them as open and as willing to share as the people that you met on the Camino?
No, they would get an odd person. No, the journalists aren't really trusted, are they? It depends. If you did a human interest story with someone with a story to tell, a nurse or someone that wanted to tell you their story, there's ways of being courteous and respectful and putting them mind at rest, just being kind with people where they would open up to you. But in my normal job, phoning up managers to football clubs, and no, they were nothing like anyone on the Camino. But most people, I didn't say to them, I'm writing a book, because I still wasn't writing a book, you see.
Right.
It was just a blog. It became a book when I got back home, and then my wife had put it on a Word document, and it was 46,000 words. So I thought it was like 5,000. And I've got a friend who's a publisher. I've written other books as well, mainly about sport. And we just got together and said, well, why don't you make it into a book? So it's 98% what I wrote at night. I've added an odd little thing about some history about a museum or something that, you know, I just didn't have time to do. Like I wrote, the most beautiful cathedral in the world, in my opinion, is Burgos. That had quite an effect on me. Spectacular cathedral. Yeah. And so like when I got my blog, and I just added 3 or 4 paragraphs of detail about it, just to sort of bring it to life a bit. But it was 98% of what happened to me. It was just the people I met, not really me. It was just the amazing people I met. I mean, can I tell you another story?
Yeah.
Is
yes.
that okay. Okay, so I'm in Puente La Reina, day 4. I'm with these 2 people from Germany. Paul and a middle-aged lady called Melanie was walking with a dog, carrying a tent. A pack weighed about 20 kilos. It was crazy. Remarkable people. And then we look in front of us, and there's a guy walking towards us, really old, skinny guy, shuffling his feet. I said, "Are you okay?" "Oh, no, I'm struggling." Anyway, sat down. "What's the problem?" "I've got blisters." So they're really, really bad. So Paul was a nurse, and he took his shoes off, which happens a lot on the Camino, doesn't it? People help me with my blisters. And then, so I said to him, "If you don't mind me asking you, how old are you?" He said, 81. I said, "Are you walking the whole Camino?" "Oh, yes, I am." I mean, what a character. So I said, "And when we leave you, you're all right? You've got your map all right? You know where you're going?" "Oh, I haven't got a map," he said. "Well, it's on your phone." "I haven't brought a phone." I said to him, "You're 81. How did you get fit for this?" Ballroom dancing, how he got fit. I mean, he's just crazy. Anyway, we spent 1 hour, then he bought us a cup of coffee. Then we saw him the next day for 20 minutes. Then I never saw him again. So I was with him for 1 hour and 20 minutes. I found out later he got to Santiago in 24 days. This is 81 years old. He got to Santiago, and he then went on to Finisterre. Now, Lee, that's not even the interesting part of the story. We swapped emails like you do, right?
Yes.
So the following year, we're living in southern Spain then, in Murcia, and the phone rings. It's 5 o'clock in the morning. You pick the phone up. "Oh dear, who's this?" "Hello, Mike, it's John." And I said, "John who?" "John from Australia. We met on the Camino. 1 hour and 20 minutes we were together. Can you pick me up from the station?" He said. He'd gone back to Australia, come back to do the Camino again, and then he got to Burgos and decided he wanted to come and see me. So he got a bus and a train to Murcia, and he's like in this village in the middle of nowhere. And he stayed with us for a week. And he's like my best friend. And like, so he's now 85. You never guess what? He's coming next month to do the Camino again. He's 85. 85 years old, and he's coming to stay with us again. So we'll meet him again. So how about that? How's that? Just the Camino is just this amazing experience, isn't it?
Yes, I am. Yeah, first off, I think that the oldest person I've ever met, I think, was 82. It was actually a woman who just finished.
Yeah, that's remarkable, isn't it?
Yeah, Jude. But 85, I think. Yes, I haven't heard that before, but I want to go back. 21 days. How?
Yeah. Was it 24 days? I think it did. 24 days. Yeah.
Still, I mean, I think even doing what a lot of folks do, you know, if we're looking at some of the guidebooks, it's like 33 days. I think even that's fast. 21.
Yeah, but you know, as you know, it's not a race, is it? Well, he's like a little bit spiritual, but he's very competitive. And I think with me, it had nothing to do with the physical challenge, really. Right. It was more about people and the beautiful. It's the most beautiful part of the whole world. I don't care what anyone says. So it was more about that and meeting people. With him, he was very demanding of himself. And he's been a good athlete all his life, and he plays tennis every week. And I think he quite liked the idea of walking it quickly. I'll just see if I can find him. I should have his picture somewhere. Yeah, so
when you first met him,
yeah,
when he's sitting there and you guys are looking at blisters and whatnot, did you, in your mind, were you like, "Oh, this guy's not going to make it"? Did you?
Oh, absolutely. Now, where am I? Here we are. Can you see that?
Oh, it's a lovely picture. So for folks that can't see it, you know, they're sitting and they got a beautiful view behind them. Where were you at that point?
We were just the other side of Puente Reina,
So
the
fourth
Queen's
day.
Bridge. Yeah, I think we were like 20 kilometers the other side.
Okay, okay. So did you think that he would finish at that point, or
No, I didn't.
that quickly?
No, absolutely no way it would finish.
So when you found out he finished, what ran through your head?
Miracle. How can you explain it? He couldn't even walk. He had like 6 blisters.
He had 6 blisters at that point.
Yeah, but their men, Paul, the German, was a nurse, and he just helped him, and he put Vaseline on, and he hadn't done anything. He's very ill prepared. He's just a character, another Camino character. Just breeds so many of them, doesn't it?
Yes, definitely. What would you say, Mike, for you was your biggest challenge in walking, just personally?
I don't think there was one, because it was all easy. I'm not referring to the physical challenges. Every single minute was fantastic, and so there were no challenges, because it was just every day. I couldn't wait to start. Who am I going to meet today? What story am I going to hear today? No, so I mean, the other thing I would say is, I hope this doesn't sound arrogant, but like we said when we started, if you think 800 kilometers, you're going to be a bit anxious. You don't think like that. If you get the right shoes, you look after your feet, you eat properly, you sleep well, it's not as hard as people think. I mean, I was 66, nearly 67. So I think, no, there were no challenges. It was just a beautiful experience. There's nothing bad I could say about it. I did have dark moments, though. Yeah, I had a couple of dark moments. Which my friend, my friend Mark said, "Oh, when you feel alone at some point." Again, I don't know why. It's happened to me 2 or 3 times, and it soon went. I just play some Bruce Springsteen song, then I felt all right again. But no, there was the odd dark moment, but way outnumbered by the amazing people I met. I think it restores your faith in humanity. I don't know. Before I went, I think I'm like I'm a little bit left wing, bit of a socialist. I believe in looking after each other, and I've become a bit of despair about the world's such a crazy, messed up place. But it restores your faith in humanity. I mean, we just one tiny quick story. I'm walking with a guy from Ireland who was a very good rower, really, really nice guy early on. And we were walking behind 2 people, and one of them was really struggling. I mean, when we caught them up, they were French, and there was a young man that was about 30, and it looked like his father was about the same age as me. His father was really struggling. And we talked to him for a couple of minutes, then we overtook them. He was a very fast walker, this Irish guy I was with. And we walked a few more kilometres, and we stopped and had a coffee. Then we could see them coming in the distance, and they were walking really well, like really fit with no one. The other guy was really struggling, the older guy. And when they got to us, the son was carrying his own bag at the back and his father's bag at the front. And then his father was like, I mean, what greater love could there be than that, to carry your father's bag? I mean, they were small bags. I don't know if that's a particularly emotive example of and the other thing I would say, it's better to give than receive. You just get more pleasure out of look. I mean, I can talk, but I'm also a good listener. And there's people, I don't know whether it's my journalistic background, but people told me deep stories about what happened to them, and a lot of whom are in there.
Oh, absolutely. That was one of the stories I read that you had written about. And I also saw a father and son situation like that, where the father was carrying 2 packs, and it moved me. It was actually the day I was on the Pyrenees.
Yeah.
And to see the son who, carrying both packs, it just impressed me on so many levels. So I really related to that when I read that section.
Yeah. I think that when you ask me about a challenge, I can't think of an example of something that happened that might make me view the world slightly differently, which would be a lesson. And so 2 years before I walked the Camino, my best friend died. So we've been friends since 1968. So we've been friends for almost 50 years. And he died suddenly. And he was the nicest, sweetest, kindest man you could ever meet. And I gave a eulogy at his funeral. There was 600 people there. 600 people. Very, very special person. And I'll quickly remind people, in case everyone doesn't know, the Cruz de Ferro is where you take a stone. You expect to take a stone. I won't go into all the details of it, to represent your sins, and you leave them there, things that are holding you back, to signify a fresh start. That's more or less right, isn't it, Lee? Yeah. And I also took a picture. Right, so I took a picture of my mother and father who died but lived long lives, and I took a picture of me and my friend who died 2 years before. And I'd met this amazing Russian person called Kazim, who called me his father. I absolutely love him. I'm still in touch with him today. And I was very anxious and worried about how this was going to affect me. And he was going to bring back all these memories. It was a big, sad thing. And when I thought about him, I was just unhappy. Every time I thought about him, I was unhappy because he'd been taken from us. So the night before, we stayed in, is it Fonte Badon? Not sure of that pronunciation. It's very close. Yes. And I was on my own. I mean, people read my book and they think I was surrounded by people all the time, but I wasn't. A lot of the time I was on my own. You flit in and out of things, don't you? This particular night I was on my own. I didn't want to be on my own because I felt I needed someone. And I walked out the next morning. On the first corner, first person I bumped into is Kazim, who I'd spent 4 or 5 days with at different times. Oh, what an amazing person. Oh, he was absolutely amazing person. I love him. I really do. And we walked towards it, and he asked me if I had a stone, and I told him about the picture of my friend, and he just said, "Mike, I'm here. Don't worry." So we got there, put the picture of my stone down, put the picture of I had a picture of my mother and father and a picture of my friend Steve. I just couldn't do it. People listening might not, I'm sure you understand this. I just couldn't do it.
Yes.
So Kazim, just, come on, Mike, he got hold of my hand and he took me towards the cross. And he got the pictures. By the way, he was 6'4", Kazim. He was massive, right? Massive Russian guy. And he said, "Oh, don't you worry, I'll look after you." So this is Kazim putting the picture of my friend on the cross. Can you see that? I don't know if you can see it.
Yes, it's lovely.
Right. So then what happened? We then said a prayer together, and then we started walking away, and we didn't speak for 20 minutes. He was 100 yards in front of me. And for the first time in 2 years, I was the happiest person I've ever been in my life, because I was bombarded with massively wonderful memories of my friend, which I'd forgotten about, because all I thought about was death. He wasn't here, and anger and a frustration because I missed him so much. But because of the Camino, the power of the Camino, I don't think that anymore. And I still don't think it now. I just think of the funny things we did together. So many happy times. And so my unhappiness and not depression's too strong, but my blackness of remembering him in a negative way because he wasn't with us was completely changed. And now when I think about him, I just smile. And I never used to do that. So power of the Camino, isn't it? It just represents happiness to me now instead of negativity. I guess as a pilgrim, you can understand that. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, Mike. I think that's a very moving story of the power of pilgrimage, in particular the power of pilgrimage on the Camino and the moment at Cruz de Ferro. When you can lay down that burden, so many of us walk with grief.
Yeah.
And this is a very moving story. I'm so glad you shared this, because I think sometimes when we talk about our Caminos, it can sound like it's all unicorns and flowers and happy vibes. But
No.
there are these moments, there are these dark moments. And I really love how you're sharing that you too had things to process and you carried this stone for your dear friend Steve. And what a loss and grief that you had carried all those years. And I find it very moving that at this moment, you know, of course, to me, Camino Angel, your friend,
Yeah,
just happens
absolutely.
to be there, right? And walks you
Mhm.
there.
Mhm.
And there you lay down this burden of grief and sadness
Mhm.
and had
Mhm.
this immediate feeling. And not everybody's going to have the same experience, right? We all have different experiences. The grief might be laid down somewhere else, you know, we don't know. But what a beautiful story you
Mhm.
shared of what you were able to process. And now hearing that you just now have good memories and happy
Yeah.
memories of him. I mean, to me, that's worth every day of your walk.
Well,
You know?
and they didn't end there because his wife, he met his wife when he was 4. He was 18. He was 17 and she was 14. We were apprentices together. And so his wife's a good friend of mine as well. We know the family. And when I asked her if she mind if I did this before I went, and she said she was very honoured to do it. Anyway, I did something. I just when the shell I carried from France to Santiago is, I think, it's a special thing, isn't it? You carried it 800 kilometers. It signifies something unique in your life that I'm very proud of. And I just remember thinking, I didn't. How can I put this? The next time I went to England, I always would go and see his wife's name's Diane. I'd always go and see her. And I mean, again, it was a story in the local paper, and you know that hundreds of people in Barrow that knew him were posting on the Facebook page because she shared it with all her friends and family, and it had a big effect on people in Barrow. And I gave her my shell that I'd carried, and she was so happy. And I think it just made me happy that I gave her this. So that was even another thing that happened. That just where else could it be better than for his wife?
How did you come to that decision to give her your
Well,
shell? That's like
I
a
don't
memento
know.
of most of our walks, right? We like to hang on to them. What made you decide
It's up
this?
here. It's in here that matters, and in here, it's just a
Head,
shell.
heart, your head and your heart.
Yeah, yeah. No, so that was another thing. Better to give. She was so happy. You know, we hugged each other. It was just, I don't know, magical Camino moment. I had so many of them. I could talk to you out for hours, and so many other things that happened to me. I was
Yeah.
so blessed,
Oh,
so blessed.
that is a beautiful story. Thank you for sharing that with us.
You're
I
welcome.
I wanted to maybe talk a little bit about, I think I've had some people recently that have come into the city and, you know, of course you walked before COVID and
Yes, I did.
my first walk was pre-COVID. I've walked since, but you know, we've changed, the world's changed. You know, some people have walked when the albergues have not been fully open and so on and so on, even though it's recovered now. But sometimes I think maybe people don't meet the number of friends they want, or they had envisioned it would be a certain way. And, you know, the pilgrim dinners maybe have not returned fully because of you know, COVID restrictions still. I wondered if you could just kind of, you alluded to this a little earlier, that people thought you were surrounded by people at all times.
Mm-hmm.
So I wonder if you could just walk us through a realistic day so that people understand that, you know, I think
Okay.
one of my
Of course.
has said, Mark David Walsh has said, yeah, you walk solo, but you walk with 500 people. And I
Yeah.
agree with that, but it's not every minute of every day. So I wonder if you could kind of just
No.
back to what
Of
you
course.
do so that we can paint a picture of what
Okay.
a typical day is like with these amazing highlights, right? You know, so
Yeah.
kind of give us a day of, you know, just like an idea of what you would describe as a
Okay.
typical day for you.
Okay. Well, so you start off from, I started off from France, and so several hundred people start off the same day. Several hundred people are the day before, and the day before that. So you've got, I don't know, 1,000 people within a 4 or 5 day span. If you walk really, really quickly, you're going to leave most of them behind. If you walk really slowly, they're going to go ahead of you. I walked probably at average speed. I stopped a lot. I had a lot of coffees, and I didn't like getting back to. I wasn't one of. I was always last out of the albergue. People do the Camino different ways, don't they, Lee? There was a lot of people who were out up early with the torches, but it wasn't that hot that time of year. So I would just set off at normal time. And so the first day, you might meet 10, 15, 20 people, and you're all ready to open your heart out to each other. Whenever you sit in a cafe, it's not like being in England or wherever, and you just start there. If there's 10 people, there's 10 people talking to each other. It's so different to normal life, isn't it? So then you might say, oh, where are you from? And do you like football? And then the next day you remember the name. It's another funny thing is everyone seems to remember my name. And I remembered their name. Something just goes in your memory where normally in the street, oh, that's Bill, that you wouldn't forget, you wouldn't remember them. So I think as your pilgrimage continues, you get to know more and more people. And then they're kind of distant, they're a little bit distant pilgrim friends. But then on top of that, then you meet people who you have an affinity with more than that. Yes. And I would say I met about 20 people in that category. Yeah. I would say at least 100 people of the former category of, yeah. Oh, how are you doing? And, you know, everything all right? How's your feet today? That sort of thing. And so, and so then sometimes you lose touch with them. So I started my first pilgrim family, which I mentioned before, was Paul, was 20 odd, and this 50-year-old German nurse walking a dog, staying in a tent. I was with them for 6 or 7 days, and then I kept encouraging him to continue forward to meet younger people, but he didn't want to leave me. You see, I don't know why. And then I would meet. Then I met him 2 weeks later, and then I met Kazim. I spent about 3 days with Kazim, and then I think with me, I didn't walk 8-10 hours a day with the same person. You just leave them sometimes. Oh, I'm going to have a coffee here. I'll just carry on then, and you then just bump into each other again. It's really, it sounds like a bit weird, doesn't it? But that's kind of how it was. And then you just have a handful of people. And I'm sorry if this is melodramatic, but I literally mean it. You love them. I love my Camino family.
Yeah.
I literally love them. And it's the uniqueness of the Camino. I think it tears away all the insecurities and the way you try and put a bubble around yourself. You're just all the same. No one cares where you're from. No one cares how much money you've got, what car you've got, what country you're from. You're all the same, and there's no cheating. This is another thing. But the only thing that upset me was, I don't know about your experience, was this little debate about pilgrims or tourists, because it really irritated me. Because Mark also said to me, Mike, you'll get this argument about people that think if you don't stay in albergues, if you send your bag forward, it's their Camino. It's got nothing to do with you. You don't know what's going on with them. But there was an odd pilgrim, but the only negative thing I came across was, oh, they're not proper pilgrims, you know, they're not. So what's it got to do with you? They do what they want. So that was kind of the only thing. So yeah, I did it kind of the traditional way, in inverted commas, if you call it that. That's just something I wanted to set out. I thought it'd be a nice challenge to carry my bag. Yeah. And I did. So that was it.
Yeah, I love this section in your book near the end where you kind of talk about that letting go of judging people, not knowing, we don't really know their challenges, and that kind of became one of the lessons that you learned.
The guy from Oregon, the guy that they don't judge you by a book by its cover. So again, so I stopped in Torres del Rio, I think it's called, and we paid, the evening meal was included in the price, and so we went to the restaurant next door and we were taken to a table. You couldn't choose. I was on my own then. Paul, the day before, I said goodbye to the German people, my first family, and I was sat down next to sort of, it sounds so awful. You prejudge people, don't you? She didn't look like she'd be very interesting. She was like, you know, a fairly plain person. I don't know. She seemed a little bit shy. And so that was her. I'd heard she's not going to be very interesting. She's just going to be boring. And then there's this American couple, and the guy was the same age as me, grey hair, long hair, beads around here, really bohemian. And he just looked like, do you remember that film? What was that film called with John Voight? Deliverance. He looked like one of those people in Deliverance. And I just thought, he's going to be a Trump supporter, because I knew he was American. I'd heard him talking. So this is the reality. So I had them judged perfectly. Boring woman, nothing to tell, or right-wing Republican hick from in the middle of nowhere, right? So the first woman's from Poland. She's taught herself English. She left Poland at 16 to go to Norway. She taught herself Norwegian in her bedroom, and she went to university to get a degree in Norwegian, which is apparently a really difficult language to learn. And she taught Norwegian children English. So that wasn't even her first language. This other guy, I thought he doesn't look like a typical Camino person. It works out, why are you on the Camino? He said, I'm a carpenter. I'm studying doors on cathedrals. And he wanted to get together a file of all these doors and that, and you're looking at the way they were built and made from 500 years ago. And he was like such a lovely person, and like just so bubbly and extrovert and warm and charming. Because again, don't judge a book by its cover. No, how wrong can you be? We all do it, don't we?
Oh,
we all do it.
It's always a lesson for me when I'm out there walking, right? And I think sometimes that's why we return, is to get these lessons hammered into our heads that, we may all have certain beliefs. We may not agree with each other on beliefs, but at the end of the day, we're more alike than we are different, right?
Absolutely. And
when we take away these layers, these veils that we develop in everyday life, and we're just back to our own wholesome heart, we see the light in everyone. We
do. We try to.
Yeah.
We try to.
Absolutely. Well, my goodness, you and I could talk all day. That's the way Camino people are, aren't we? Right. But I think we'll close here, because I think these have just been some wonderful stories. And I just want to remind everyone that they can purchase your book. It's Miracles on the Camino. And I can tell them there's chapter after chapter of stories like the ones that you've been sharing here. So they may want to check that out. And I really hope that folks hearing your stories are inspired to come and walk. And I just wanted to say, for folks that didn't get a chance to, for one, we're recording this audio. It's an audio that we're recording today for the podcast. But we are going to do a special video that will be on my YouTube channel. And that video is going to be 20 questions with Mike. And so you can check that out, so you can put a face to the voice. And also I will include a little bit of the footage that we recorded today of the tattoo that we showed a photo of, and some of the other things that we've referred to, especially at Cruz de Ferro. So if somebody wants to see the photos of that, of course, you can buy the book and see it, but if not, you can catch it in the 20 question video, which we will have on YouTube. Right. So anyway, thank you so much, Mike, for coming to the Camino Cafe.
My pleasure. I enjoyed every minute of it.
Oh my goodness.
You're taking me back there.
Right. I think that's part of our whole journey, right, is being able to share these stories. And I heal by hearing your story. You heal by sharing it. And hopefully someone that's out there that maybe has had similar experiences, they will come and walk and have some of the experiences, and maybe even bigger and better experiences than what you and I have even had, but nonetheless, the experience of walking the Camino. So stay on with me so you and I can officially say goodbye. But thank you. And thank you for everyone that's listening.
My pleasure.
If you decide to walk because you've heard any of Mike's stories, please let us know. We'd love to hear that. And until next time, everyone, buen camino.
God bless.